Hello and welcome to the Hindu. I'm Priyali Prakash, and today we'll discuss the extreme pollution situation in Delhi and the National Capital Region. On Monday, Delhi woke up engulfed in a thick layer of smog, and the air quality has dipped once again even further, which is now in the severe plus category. This means that stage 4 of the graded response action plan is in place now. And we have with us Jacob Koshy, Deputy Science Editor, and Nikhil Babu, Senior Reporter with The Hindu in New Delhi, to discuss this in detail. Nikhil, could you give us an overview of the status of pollution situation in Delhi and the key statistics associated with it?
Yeah, sure. So what happens every winter, the air pollution in Delhi and many other areas of North India goes really downhill. And this time also from October 30th, the air pollution of Delhi has been in the very poor category for almost 15 days. And from there, November 13, it became severe and it has almost stayed in that range till now. And today it has even worsened into the severe plus category. So the severe plus category is the highest category. When you say AQI, it's like a scale of 0 to 100. So today, right now at 1 p.m., it's around 490. And at least three stations in Delhi, it has maxed out at 500. So the actual AQI would be even higher, but we're not able to even measure that because it has just maxed out at 500. So this is the current situation, and what you need to understand is that this severe level, even the health effects is really severe. It lead to serious impacts with those existing diseases, according to the government. So, this is the current situation, and they expect it to ease out a little and go back to the very poor category by tomorrow.
All right. Um, Jacob, could you tell us a little about the main causes for this pollution?
Yeah, thanks, Priyali. So, as Nikhil pointed out, winter or the run up to winter. I mean, technically, in India, the India Meteorological Department defines winter only from December to February. So October to November is kind of a pre-winter season or post-monsoon season. But the causes of pollution, I mean, throughout the year there are some very general causes. There is transport, that is emissions from vehicles. There is biomass burning. There is from agricultural residue. There is industries, and there are secondary aerosols which actually are result from, for example, the agricultural activities. So these factors are constant, but it's really the meteorological changes during winter or during the onset of winter that heightens one factor or the other more than the others. So for example, in October and November, particularly November, stubble burning becomes a more important, relatively more important factor. I mean, this November we have seen the relative contribution of stubble burning to Delhi's air, go up from nearly 8%, from the start of the month to as much as 31%, on just 3 or 4 days back, and it's roughly around 20-25%, as of now. That's one effect. But if you look at the contribution of transport of fuel of from the burning of fuel, that roughly stays around like 15 or 16%. But again, this is highly variable because as experts have said, uh, even on a particular day there are like 300-500 cars more on a particular day than the other. It does not always reflect very linearly in a spike in AQI. The same thing happens even with stubble burning, because this year this I mean, what's actually happened is that in terms of stubble burning, this is actually one of the best years in Delhi NCR's air pollution history. I mean, farm fires are at an all-time low. It's only in the 5,000s or something, as compared to 30 or 50,000, same time, in 2020-21. But yet you are act and but yet you've actually seen very poor, the AQI go to so-called very poor, that is about 300 and 400, and severe as we are seeing now. So these, in fact, this actually shows the complexity of the issue, and that show, I mean, the last couple of days what's happened is meteorological conditions have turned particularly adverse. That is, there is no, the surface winds as well, surface winds have dropped extremely low, and the normally there is a particular height, if, from when you measure ground at which the pollutants are flushed out. That particular height, because of the lack of winds, has kind of depressed, below, and that's why they're not able. They are kind of circulating in this atmosphere. And then there is also the fog factor, the natural fog that comes from water vapor, water, and the lower temperatures. So as is usual, there is this cocktail of factors that have contributed, and going by past experience, it's I it's only going to get worse. This is just the first severe, so-called severe quality episode that we are registering, and I'm fairly sure that you're going to see more of it in December, and probably the months ahead.
All right. Could you also tell us a little bit about the short term and long term health risks associated with living in pollution for people in Delhi NCR?
Sure. So this has been a body of work that has been, that has been going on for a few years right now. There is, of course, because of the size of particles involved. I mean, PM10 was once the major, the coarser dust particles were the major culprit blame behind air pollution. But now we measure PM2.5 better, and what is said is that the smaller the microns, the smaller the diameter of those particles, the more they are likely to enter our body and cause a whole range of effects from respiratory illnesses, for example, cardiovascular disease. But we must also remember that, surprisingly, this is actually one of the toughest parts to actually study. That is, prove a direct correlation between PM 2.5 levels and public and the kind of health impacts that we've had. I mean, all said and done, this is still a novel. I mean, it's only like 10, 15 years since people have been seriously studying these crises in, at this granular detail. And many times it takes many more years of work to actually prove, you know, reliable correlationships between, let's say, of, an X% increase in the AQI and, very evident public health, like health impact, so to say. But there have been a spate of very interesting studies, that have been done by, multiple researchers, where they have actually shown that on average, when AQI levels, rise by few points, particularly in Delhi or Bangalore, it leads to higher mortality. Higher mortality rates are, evident, and it is more pronounced in Delhi as opposed to Bangalore, let's say. But what was also interesting was that, more than the actual, like more than it being 400 or 300, it is actually this increase in AQI levels. So that means, even if Bangalore, which generally has much better AQI levels than Delhi, but a 20, 10 or 30% spike in AQI level in Bangalore for local causes of pollution at other parts of the world, it also can lead to mortality, increases as measured by the, by the official death and mortality statistics. So this is all gross measurements. But also, what we anecdotally also see, as as we have also been reporting through the years, you see a lot of cases of respiratory illnesses, breathing issues that are being reported in emergency rooms, and the effects are there. So all said and done, it is not the healthiest of times to be taking a walk in Delhi.
All right. Nikhil, could you tell us a bit about the policies that are in place to deal with this pollution, and also how is GRAP 4 different from other policies?
So, GRAB is an acronym for Graded Response Action Plan. So, it's an emergency plan. So, it's not a long-term plan or even a short-term plan, but it's a just an emergency plan when the air pollution is extremely hazardous. To bring down, basically the government is curbing the activities. By curbing different activities, the government is essentially trying to control or end the sources of pollution. For example, there are different stages of grab, like grab 1, 2, 3, 4, and currently we have the grab 4 in place, which is the highest. So what happens is In Grab 1, there will be certain restrictions which will be minute compared to Grab 4. In Grab 2, it will be a little more, intensive. In Grab 3, for example, there is a ban on construction activities, which is one of the major things that comes with Grab 3. But this Grab 3 also, there are certain exceptions to this construction restrictions, like some of the government projects are allowed to go on. In Grab 3, again, the schools up till class 5, the government advises the to be advised to be shut down. What we need to understand is that this grab is enforced in the entire NCR. NCR is National Capital Region, which has Delhi and neighboring districts. It's imposed by a central body called CAQM. It stands for Commission for Air Quality Management. So this is a body that that sort of sees the forecast of what is the air quality going to be, and there are certain levels according to which they invoke different levels of grab. And yesterday they invoked Grab 4. So Grab 4 carries even more stricter form of ban on construction activities, and ban on entry of trucks into Delhi, except for emergency purposes. And also other thing is that the government, it sort of gives a recommendation to different governments. Again, this is not just Delhi but in the NCR region. So they can use something like a odd even formula for vehicles. So vehicles which end with a odd number or digit, they will run on odd days, and the number with even run on even days. So essentially they're trying to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. So just like that, when you put a ban on construction activities, so that's again curbing a different source of pollution. So by this, they are hoping to cut down the source of pollutions and bring down the pollution levels. So this is Grab, but again, remember, Grab is just an emergency measure. But throughout the year, again, this CAQM was formulated in 2020, 2021 to have a coordinated approach between the NCR districts, Delhi and the neighboring areas, because the air pollution doesn't follow geographical, or boundaries of states. It follows a airshed pattern. So this entire area will be having a common airshed. So if you want to control the pollution in Delhi, you need to control the air pollution in the nearby areas also. So in the long term, there are different policies. For example, as Jacob mentioned, stubble burning. To control stubble burning, there's a coordinated approach across, this NCR regions that's happening, and there's a central government scheme for subsidy of machines, etc. But I would say, in other areas, it's not that coordinated. When it comes to vehicular pollution or dust control, each state has its own measures. Even though CAQM monitors it, it's a little more scattered. So that's sort of the difference between what is Grab and the long-term and short-term policies.
All right. Do you also think that public awareness campaigns can play a role in helping to curb air pollution?
Well, today I was just coming to office, and Jacob would also notice the same, that even though it's in severe plus category and almost touching 500, you can hardly see people wearing mask even in Delhi. So it's really surprising, because over time I think people have gotten used to this pollution levels. I think Jacob would be able to add more. I mean, he would be also noticing the same, I guess.
Yes, absolutely, Nikhil. So, I mean, this is, I mean, even anecdotally, I have not seen any substantial dip in, the car, in the general car population that I normally witness around my areas. The roads are as clogged as usual. So, I don't know. Maybe I think there is. I don't know. Maybe Nikhil can clarify on this, but is it only after we hit severe plus that this odd even and schemes like that actually kick in? So
So
I guess we'll have to wait.
yeah, what happens in odd even is it's not a mandatory measure. Rest of the
Right.
directions that is given by the CAQM, those are mandatory. The states have to follow it. If they're not following it, actually, the CAQM can take action against it. It has power. CAQM is formed under, it's a statutory body, so it is formed under an act of the government, of the parliament. So it can take action against the state government if they're not following measures, such as, for example, if they're not imposing a construction ban. But when it comes to odd even, it's just merely a direction, that the states may consider imposing odd even. It's not mandatory for them. So
Yeah.
the state government has not said anything about this so far. So
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see whether they're going to impose that or not.
But again, that's one of those measures that the state governments or governments like to show that oh, we are acting very strongly
Yeah.
on vehicles now that we have reached this point of no return. But as Nikhil was saying, the general consensus as Delhi NCR residents, as we all are, is that we've been going through these cycles so often now, and there seems to be a realization that okay, it's or a general consensus that ultimately it is very much a function of weather, and the core sources of addressing pollution, such as a significant shift away from private transport into public transport. Those are things that are hardly being enforced, or hardly happening in any significant way. And the very fact that it is, it's an airshed laced problem. I mean, this is literally Delhi NCR, and actually involves coordination even with our neighboring, with Pakistan to some extent. If you really really want to address it at core sources, but we all
See,
know
I
that those
think
are not things that are
Delhi
actually
gets a
going to
lot of
happen.
importance because it's a national capital. Even today morning, when we're looking at the figures, Delhi is touching in the morning. It was 384, which is in the severe plus category. There were a lot of towns and cities in entire North Indian belt which were in severe and severe plus. So it's not just Delhi alone. And outside
Yeah.
NCR also, there are different towns which are still in severe. It's a thing we notice every year that Delhi, because being the national capital, Supreme Court being here, we get a lot of lot of importance and coverage in the news. But it's not just a Delhi problem; it's a problem of North India. And also adding to what Jacob said, it's not a lack of policies that when we talk to officials, also what we the general understanding with the community, of experts also is there are a lot of policies in place. It's the implementation where it is lacking, for example, and the politics that comes with it. I mean, today, just an hour back, there was a press conference by the Delhi chief minister in which she's blaming the stubble burning from other states of, BJP rule states like, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and saying that this is what is causing pollution. Whereas in Punjab, which is an Aam Aadmi Party rule state, in Delhi also Aam Aadmi Party is in power. In Punjab, it has come down, and it's because of the BJP rule states which is not following, and Delhi is suffering. This is something we are hearing like year after year, but I mean, but if you look at the statistics of stubble burning over the years, in all these states, in Punjab and Haryana are the major contributors. In both the states, it has come down substantially. But again, we are caught in this, political blame game of is it because of Punjab and or is it because of Haryana? So we just get trapped in that. And another example of that is that to control stubble burning, there is a 1,000 rupee subsidy for farmers in Haryana. So if they don't burn stubble after 2 months, 3 months, the government sort of gives 1,000 rupees to them per acre. But again, in Punjab, I mean, they have been asking for this scheme for at least 7 to 8 years now. And this year also, they're asking the sender, hey, you pitch in a little, we'll also put some money and let's give some incentive to the farmers. But they're not able to reach an understanding. The Punjab and, the state government and the central government is again, implementation of a policy which is lacking and the politics of it, which comes in the way.
Okay. Thank you. In context of implementation of policies, Nikhil, can you tell us a bit about the Supreme Court directive that came out earlier today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what happens is that as we discussed earlier, the grab is imposed by a commission called CAQM, Commission for Air Quality Management. So they imposed the severe plus category restrictions yesterday, and the Supreme Court has sort of said that hey, even though it turned hazardous, we waited for a while to so impose these restrictions. So essentially, what happens is every time the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 of grab, it's imposed by the CAQM. Now, what the Supreme Court has said today is that it questioned the Delhi government over the delay of the implementation of these Grab 4 measures and said that it will not allow scaling down of these measures until and unless the court says so. So basically, the court has intervened in this. Now they can remove. I mean, our understanding at this point is that they cannot scale it down to Grab 3 or Grab 2 without the court's nod on it.
All right. Can we get some concluding comments from both of you? Jacob, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So in I mean, what I mean, just adding to what Nikhil has been saying, it is actually an implementation problem and also a socio-economic problem. It is not something that can, you need major transformations in the economic activities that that sustain life in a city like Delhi. I mean, there are still a lot of people, who cannot, who need to stay warm and cannot afford, heaters, and biomass burning is still a major way that people rely on to to keep warm. And the very erratic power supply, for instance, for incentive, forces people to use diesel gensets, and that, so despite there being bans on the use of the gensets, right, I think from the third stage of grab, but in the actual execution of all of these measures, is where we lack. So while we might hurtle from crime crisis every time we in these particular months, it really makes sense if the CAQM and bodies, they kind of get away from blame game and kind of work to address issues at a core multiple level. Even things like, for instance, there was recently a study which said that even tarring unpaved roads or fixing them dramatically reduces the levels of road dust, which again is a major contributor to spikes in AQI. But actually addressing these things is doable, but that again requires coordination among multiple arms within the Delhi government, the municipal corporations, etc. Then that will open up different cans of worms, like availability of funds, shortage of workers, to actually implement all of these solutions. So I guess it is a mix of economic transformation and a general will to actually address this crisis, rather than just accepting it as a fact of life and a whim of mythology, that we can actually get we can actually one day hope that severe air plus is not you know a characteristic of living in Delhi during winter.
Nikhil, would you like to add to that?
Yep, exactly. I mean, as Jacob said, the other way to look at that problem is also from the side of the people, that, unless and until, it becomes an election issues, and, parties feel that, hey, if you're not going to act on this, we're going to lose the election. I mean, they're going to really work towards it. I mean, it's still in the discussion in Delhi, I mean, in the elections, but not as the core issue. It will be somewhere in the fringes. It'll be part of the, manifestos, but again, it's not the core policy of the election speeches, or it's not on which, elections are fought and won. So I think that it has to do with a lot of awareness from the point of the people. And when people start actually demanding a clean air, and, hey, we are going to vote you out of power if you're not going to do this, that's when we are going to see some substantial action, I feel.
All right. Thank you, Jacob and Nikhil, for your views, and thank you to viewers for watching. Please subscribe to The Hindu. We have a lot of analysis on the topic and more reports for you.
Thank you,
Thank
Priyali.
you, Priyali.
Thanks, Nikhil.